Hi, I'm Eric. Today I've got this Toyota Tacoma in the bay so I can show you how easy it is to add the convenience of remote start to your truck with StartX. This kit is compatible with Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Highlander. And with the exception of one wire that we cut in half and crimped together and a ground connection that's screwed into the vehicle, the rest of the installation is plug and play. We're confident that with using a few basic tools, you can do this upgrade to your vehicle in the comfort of your own garage in one afternoon. Let's take a look at what's included in the box. We have the remote start module, our vehicle connection harness, our TPMS wire which will splice into the vehicle, a pry tool, a warning sticker that our vehicle is equipped with a remote starter, and the instruction manual. Let's take a look at the tools we're going to use on today's installation. A ratchet with a 10mm socket, so we can disconnect the vehicle's negative battery terminal. Your vehicle may require a different size socket. A drill with a Phillips bit, a zip tie, and some electrical tape. And crimpers that crimp and cut. Let's take a closer look at what's included in our vehicle harness connection packaging. We have our OBD2 connection T-harness and our ignition switch T-harness, which has plugs for the module. And the secondary harness has larger gauge wires. This is our high current harness. This plugs into the module, and we have a ground wire which will connect to a bolt in the vehicle. And this small harness is our TPMS connection. We cut a wire in the vehicle and connect it to these two connectors. Extra connectors are included if they're needed. A hood pin is included, but not required for installation. The hood pin's job is to prevent the vehicle from remote starting if the vehicle's hood is open. Many vehicles have a factory hood pin, so they won't remote start without it. Not required for installation. Zip ties are included for securing the module and the wiring up under the dash. Before we begin our installation, we're going to disconnect the vehicle's negative battery terminal. Typically, this requires a ratchet with a 10mm socket. Your vehicle may require a different size socket. Loosen the bolt and slide the connector off. It may help to wiggle a little bit while moving it. Be sure the cable is away from the terminal. First, we'll remove the door sill trim panel. We can use a pry tool to pry up along the edge to remove it. Next, we can remove the lower kick panel plastic cover. There's a fastener that screws on here on the back. Simply unscrew this plastic fastener by hand. This will allow us to remove the panel by pulling it toward the center of the truck. This gives us access to the three 10mm bolts we need to remove from the bottom of the panel below the steering column. Now we can remove this whole plastic panel below the steering column by pulling toward the rear of the vehicle. We want to be careful to leave the airbag panel in place, but remove the larger panel that surrounds it. We can use the supplied nylon pry tool to carefully separate the two panels if needed. This gives us access to the BCM, where we'll need to make a few connections. If we unplug the harnesses on the rear of this panel, we can lower it further out of the way, giving us better access to the connectors in the dash. Inserting the key into the ignition and turning it to the on position allows us to rotate the steering wheel so we can access the Phillips screw on the side. Remove this screw. Then rotate the steering wheel to the opposite direction so we can remove the Phillips screw on that side. Now we want to separate the two halves of the steering column cover. Sometimes we can simply pull down on the lower half. If they don't separate, we can carefully insert the pry tool on the seam between the two halves and use it to split them apart. Lowering the tilt lock lever under the steering column will make it easier to pass the lower section of the plastic over the lever. This is the ignition harness. Directly behind the key cylinder, there's an 8-pin harness with large gauge wires. This is the ignition harness. Press in on the latch tab and pull the connector out. Now plug this connector into the female connector on the ignition T-harness. Then plug the male connector into the OEM location at the key cylinder. This free connector is for the module. This black wire with the ring terminal is a ground wire. Tuck the harness into the dash. Route the free connector through the dash to the lower section behind the metal brackets. The metal ring terminal with the black wire needs to be connected to a solid ground, so we'll remove one of these 10mm bolts. Ensure that the wire is routed up behind the metal dash brackets. Pass the ring terminal around the bolt and reinstall it. These are the BCM and OBD2 T-harnesses. Let's start with the OBD2 T-harness. Using a pry tool, press the latch tabs on both sides of the OBD2 port. This will allow us to release it from the mount. Now plug this connector into the female connector on the OBD2 T-harness. Then with the latch tab on the top side, slide the male connector behind the metal bracket and snap it into the OEM location. Pass this BCM T-harness up behind the dash to the module. Unplug the 30-pin white connector and plug it into the female connector on the T-harness. Then plug the male connector into the OEM location with the latch tab to the left. These are the connectors for the remote start module. This is the 36-pin connector in the BCM. We're looking for a green or pink wire in pin location 33, which is the fourth down from the top on the far left row. In this vehicle, the wire is green. If we carefully remove some of the electrical tape around the wires, we can peel back the wire loom, which gives us more access to the wires to work with. Separate the green or pink wire from the rest of the wires. We need to cut this wire in half.
Using wire strippers, remove some of the insulation from both of the ends of the cut wire. There's a 2-wire harness provided with crimp connectors on each end. Insert one of the stripped wires into one of the crimp connectors and use a crimp tool to crimp it securely onto the wire. Then repeat this process with the other wire from the 2-wire TPMS harness. These connectors are all for the remote start module. Here's a closer look at the green wire where we spliced in our 2-wire TPMS harness. Before we can program the module, we need to reconnect the vehicle's negative battery terminal. Press and hold the programming button on the module. While still holding it down, plug in the large white connector. The LEDs will cycle. Allow them to cycle at least once. And when only the blue and red LEDs are illuminated, release the programming button. Now insert the remaining connectors into the module. Press and release the programming button 10 times. The red and blue LEDs will flash and pause. Without pressing the brake, insert the key and turn it to the on run position. The blue and red LEDs will flash rapidly. We're waiting for just the blue LED to flash. When only the blue LED is flashing, the programming is complete. Now we can turn the key to the off position and remove it from the ignition. Now we can use the supplied zip ties to secure the module behind the dash. We want to place the module and the wiring up behind the dash. We can bundle up some of the extra wiring and secure it with some of the supplied zip ties. Trimming the excess off the zip ties keeps the installation as tidy as possible. We can pass a zip tie through the mounting holes on the end of the module and secure it to the factory wiring and dash brackets. Here we see the module tucked safely up behind the dash. Then reinstall the lower dash panel, being sure to reconnect any plugs which were disconnected earlier. Reassemble the two halves of the steering column and reinsert the two Phillips screws. Align the clips with the holes in the dash and snap the panel forward into position. Reinstall the three 10mm bolts. Reinstall the kick panel, and its plastic fastener can simply be pressed back on. Then finally, reinstall the door sill trim panel. Line up the tabs and click it into place.
And that completes the installation of our StartX remote starter on our Toyota Tacoma or Highlander. Now we simply press lock 3 times on the factory key fob and we can remote start our vehicle. We hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.